we have part 28 called the moving temple. So basically, you know what that means. We're talking about us being a temple now, right? So we're going to see a little bit more of that. Our focus is going to be in Corinthians, Romans, Hebrews, and some other writings, just to kind of share an end time plan, an eschatological end time plan. But before we do that, we all know we got some rules, right? So please keep your mic muted, except when asking or answering a question. Use the mic to speak. There is a feature in the room where you can raise your hand if you have a question. All questions must be on the topic. You have 60 seconds to ask or answer a question. If you pass your 60-second window, your mic will be muted for you. These are rules due to time and the recordings of lessons. These are live teachings. We must give the Moreh enough time to complete the lesson. All right. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Removing the veil. So we talked about the veil last week. We're going to go into a little bit more today, just a little bit. So keep in mind now, what we're doing today is a lot of these questions that I have, you guys already have the answer. You know why? Because we already went over it. It should be nothing to it. Just curious how that's going to go down, but we shall see. All right, so it says, since we have such a hope, we are very bold. Not like Moshe or Moses, who would put a veil over his face so that Yasharallah Israel might not gaze at the outcome of what was being brought to the end. But their minds were hardened, for to this day, when they read the old covenant, that same veil remains unlifted, because only through Mashiach is it taken away. Pause. When you read this here, what came to mind? When you read about this veil and with Moses, and what was the understanding? You can even tell me what's understanding before and what your understanding is now. Yeah. Okay. So, no problem. So we'll keep going. Yes, to this day, whenever Moshe and Moses is read, a veil lies over the heart. But when one turns to Yahuah, the veil is removed. So Yahuah is the spirit, and where the spirit of Yahuah is, there is freedom. Okay, and we all, with unveiled faces, beholding the esteem of Yahuah, are being transformed into the same image, from one degree of esteem to another. For this comes from Yahuah, who is the spirit. Now, when it says one degree of esteem to another, what does that mean, at least? Okay, does everyone know what esteem is? Commonly called glory. All right, awesome. All right, think about this here in James, first dealing with the freedom portion. It says, but whosoever looks into the perfect law of liberty or freedom and continues therein, he is being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work. This man shall be blessed in his deed. All right, so if you look at a couple of things here, one is, I don't know if it's understood that this veil represented some time the Old Testament, the Old Covenant, and now that's been torn down. The Messiah now has a whole different understanding of how we just under faith, grace. We no longer have to do. Is that a normal thing in traditional Christendom?
Been gone too long. I don't know.
Oh, I can tell.
Absolutely, Moreh.
Okay. So now, when you think about this veil, which we're going to go into a little bit more, we're going to see what in the world is Shaul talking about. We're going to see that in a minute. Other part of it, obviously, is now Yahuah is the spirit, and where the spirit of Yahuah is, there is freedom. And if the spirit, if his laws righteous and just and spiritual, wouldn't he be in these things? Right? Okay, good. We'll keep going. So we first need to find out the story behind the quote-unquote Old Testament. Why is the veil being used? How is the Spirit of Yahuwah being used as a key to Shaul's understanding? Okay, so we need to answer these questions. Now, we will, but if you guys happen to know the answer, by all means, get yourself a mic, and I'm willing to hear it. If you're saying just hit the next slide, I'm going to do that right now.
You got your bowls and cups out, brother. You need to be filled up.
I got you. All right, 2 Corinthians 3:3 says, for as much as you are manifestly declared to be the epistle or the letter of Mashiach, ministered by us, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living Yahuwah, not in tables of stone, but in fleshly tables of the heart. Pause. What is this about? Get your running shoes ready because they're about to answer in just a minute. All right. First, so when we read this, normally, I'm just asking normally, what does it normally say? What you thought it was when let's say you was in traditional Christendom. Now, they may have, different denominations have different thoughts, but traditionally, what was told?
Okay, honestly, I don't remember what was told initially in Christianity. But when I read this particular scripture now, my understanding is essentially this is the fulfillment of Yahuah's word, where he said that he would write it upon our hearts at that point, in that time.
Okay, so when it says manifestly declared to be the letter of Mashiach, ministered by us, written not with ink.
Right.
Okay, and so we have a couple of things here. We have a letter, and then a letter. Then all of a sudden it says not with ink. Is everyone with me so far? Then it says, but with the Spirit of the living Yahuwah, not in tables of stone, but in fleshly tables of the heart. All right, so what's the connection here?
Excuse me, Moreh.
Ken.
Is it saying that, okay, well, coming out of the traditional Christianity, it was told that no longer will you have to keep the written law on the tablets of stone, but to that the Spirit of the living God at that point, or Elohim, would lead you to the all truth being in your heart. So almost like following after your heart.
Okay. All right. Someone's paying attention in church. Okay. What you have?
I was thinking when you say written on stone, that was the time when the Most High wrote on stone with his fingers. Okay, so now, like it says in Jeremiah, that he will write it on our hearts and in our minds.
Okay. All right. So keep in mind, Shaul is not having a Matthew through Revelation at this time, right? So he knows what the Tanakh says. So he's using a parallel between some. So if you think about, let's say, his letter and it's something written in ink. You think about the Father's stone and written with his finger. I want you to start putting these parallels together, right, to see where he's going with this. All right. Zechariah 7:12 says, yea, they made their heart as adamant stone, lest they should hear the law and the words which Yahuwah Sabaoth has sent in his spirit by the former prophets. Therefore came a great wrath from Yahuwah Sabaoth. So remember, as you shared before, they made their hearts like stone. Okay, and it's at least they should hear what? Okay, so we'll read a little bit about, it's not the content on the stone, it's the stone itself, that he's comparing that as your body being a stone versus your heart, right? We'll see that in a minute. And then, of course, it says, and the word of Yahushua was sent how? It was by his Ruach, right? It was by his spirit. So again, through his spirit, it was supposed to go somewhere, but they've made their heart like adamant stone. Okay, great. Keep going. So it says, but the ministration of death written and engraven in stone was esteemed, so that the children of Yashrael or Israel could not steadfastly behold the face of Moses for the esteem of his countenance, which the esteem was to be done away. how shall not the ministration of the Spirit be rather esteemed? Okay. So a couple of things. What is Shaul talking about? Meaning, what is being compared? So we know that you'll see the stone versus the flesh, technically like his letter versus what he wrote. So if you think about even Shaul's letters today, if you read his letters, if you're just reading it, that's one thing. But if you take it out and apply it to your life, that's something different. No difference than he's sharing about the stone. The Father's word is one thing to be written down, but if you don't apply it into your heart, it just becomes something written on stone, right? You have a stony heart, right? He said, do it, I'm going to do it. But you have no feeling, no desire to do it. It's just because he said to do it, I don't want to get in trouble with him. So it's really not in your heart. All right, the letter or the epistle being compared to the ink, table of stones versus fleshly tables of the heart, death engraven in stone versus the spirit engraven in life, the spirit living in the heart, letter versus the spirit, old covenant versus new covenant. This is what he's trying to compare, but we're trying to see how he's doing this. Okay, now I'll give you a hint. It is the ministry. So we're going to see how this ministry works. All right, so briefly, the ministry of the new covenant, if you will, is a commission to teach the good news of the Basar. Number two, not letter, but of the Spirit, right? So we need to understand his scripture and Torah's instructions in such a way that it will circumcise your heart. This means we need to teach to obey, but obey, not just to teach, but obey, but to obey with the love of becoming sons of Elohim, right? So there's one thing to obey what he says, but there's a different thing. You're obeying it and you're being like his son, okay, the son of Elohim. You love his commandments. You want to do them. You have a desire to do them versus, all right, we'll do this. I'll do it only because he said so, okay? Number three is for the letter kills, but the spirit gives life. So we first need to understand that the law does not save your flesh. Okay? You can't inherit the kingdom, right? It's not designed to save your flesh. Yahuwah wants to save your soul. At some point, you will lose the checklist and it will be a part of your heart by way of the spirit. So in other words, you love it so much, you don't even need it because it's already, sometimes we can quote so many things. Why? It's starting to become into our heart. Versus, what was that place again? Where I know I read it somewhere, right? So at some point, it starts to become a part of you. Your heart must match his word, okay? It must match his word. His word states that if we keep his Torah, we will live. Remember, the whole point of it is if you keep these things, is to give you life, long life specifically. This life is beyond the flesh, but the flesh must be subjected to his word in order for your works to be counted as righteousness. So that's the part we call the fruit. You can see them by their fruit. Okay? All right. We'll keep going. So here are some examples of Shaul sharing, but where he get it from. These are some places where we can see where Shaul's get the idea of stony heart versus fleshly heart and things like that. So in Shemot Exodus 31:18 it says, and he gave unto Moses when he had made an end of communing with him upon Mount Sinai or Mount Sinai, 2 tables of witness or 2 tables of testimony, tables of stone, written with the finger of Elohim. Okay, Ezekiel 11:19 says, and I will give them one heart, and I will put a new spirit within you, and I will take the stony heart out of their flesh and will give them a heart of flesh. 36:26 says, Ezekiel 36:26 says, a new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you, and I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you shall keep my judgments and do them. Yirmiyahu 31:31 through 33 says, behold, the day comes, saith Yahuwah, that I will make a new covenant. Same words that's used in Shaul's writing, same words used here, with Beit Yisrael, the house of Israel, and with Beit Yehuda, or the house of Judah. not according to the covenant I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim or Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was a husband unto them, saith Yahuah. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house Beit Israel, the house of Israel, after those days, saith Yahuah. I will put my law in their inward parts and write it on their hearts, and will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. Now, when you look at this here, you notice that Shaul or here is not talking about replacing the law with something different. He's showing that the law still stands. It's going to go from being something on his letter, if you will, or on stone, to being inside of you. No, the law is not changing. So is everyone with me so far? All right. So chapter 3 can be divided into two main sections. Chapter 3, 1 through 6 deals with Israel's adequacy for the ministry, which we'll talk about in a minute. And 3, 7 through 18 compares two kinds of ministries, right? That under the old covenant and that under the new. So in the first main section, he refers to the Tanakh motif of tablets of stone, contrast to tablets of human heart. Everyone sees those two comparisons, right? In the second section, Shaul's primary purpose is to highlight the esteemed character of the ministry with which he had been entrusted, and so explains why, despite so many difficulties, he does not lose heart. So he's not talking about doing away with the laws. He's sharing you now about this ministry that is dealing with. So if you think about today, if we're going out with minister and we're talking to people, you're going to be dealing with two types of hearts. And he's comparing these two types of hearts with the covenant and the renewed covenant or the new covenant. That's what's happening so far. Okay. So since the 10 Deborahs were always in the center of Israel's faith, the reference to the two tablets of stone points to the very heart of the law. We should note that Shaul does not criticize the content. He's not talking about what's on it. He's just talking about the thing that is played, like the stone itself, but not what's been written on it, right? That still stands, all right, of the two tables. Rather, he contrasts the outward appearance of the tables of stone with the internalized message written on the hearts of the people. Okay, that's the difference. All right, so how are we doing so far? All right. All right, so back to Corinthians 3:10 says, and we all with unveiled face, beholding the esteem of Yahuah, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of esteem to another. For this comes from Yahuah, who is the Spirit. So I'm going back over this because I didn't think I was going to get an answer. All right. So Shaul says that when people turn to Yahuah, the veil is taken away. Right now, if you think about, we talked last week, what happened to that veil when Mashiach died? It tore the veil, right? So now all of a sudden, that veil was covering what? The steam, the kadoshim, and it was covered. Now he's saying this being open, so that must mean that the steam is now coming out, right? All right. When this occurs, all with unveiled faces behold as in a mirror the esteem of Yahuah are being transformed into the same image from esteem to esteem, just from Yahuah the Spirit. All right. So those who trust in Mashiach come back into close relationship with Elohim and begins to reflect the esteem of his image. That's the objective. Okay, the word esteem and image are virtually synonymous in verse 18, if you just read up top, as they also are in 1 Corinthians 11:70. Man is the image and esteem of Elohim. So obviously, you know where we're going with this, right? Back to the garden, right? He was supposed to be in image and likeness of Elohim. So you're seeing these two atoms are paralleling themselves back to back. Where one fell, one is restoring. All right, so the mentioning of Mashiach in verse 14 is a picture of Mashiach's esteem and Tselem or image into his people or believers, thereby causing them to be transformed. Okay, this is the linking Mashiach to first Adam, who reflects Elohim's esteem. But he did not lose the divine image altogether, but it did become distorted by losing the esteem aspect of the image. So the minute Adam did something, we lost something. All right, something was lost that we didn't gain. So Mashiach going through it all is helping us gain that very thing that was lost. Okay, so we're good, right? So I'm going to share with you where this is located. All right, so Romans 3:23 says, for all have sinned and fall short. Now, in the Greek, it's lacking of the esteem of Elohim, right? So falling short, there's something that's been lacking. We fell short because we're lacking something, okay? And then, which is the esteem of Elohim. So Adam and Chawah's fall in Gan Eden, or the Garden of Eden, where they exchanged the esteem, commonly called the glory, of the incorruptible Elohim for an image of their own creating, their image, right? You start seeing that in chapter 5. But anyway, this meant that they ceased to reflect Elohim's esteem and image, but reflects the vanity of themselves. So what Chawah and Adam lost in Gan Eden, or the Garden of Eden, and consequently is what they will retrieve in the end time. So we're going to read how they get it back. So we can't leave out Adam and Eve, if you will. What's going to happen to them? So this is coming out of the Apocalypse of Moses, which is between the 1st and 3rd century CE. It's the only reason why I'm using it. It says, I have been stripped of the righteousness in which I was clothed and alienated from esteem. Okay, he was alienated from esteem. So similar when Chawah gives the fruit to Adam, who then says, you have alienated me from the esteem of Yahuah. Okay, so this when this thing took place, they're saying you have taken something from me by doing this. The very thing you did opposite what the Father told you to do, you're going to lose something. All right. Chawah and Adam were both associated with righteousness and esteem before the fall, and afterwards they lost these qualities. This fits with what Shaul stated, all have sinned and lacking the esteem of the Lord. That's where this is coming from. So everyone's with us so far. All right. We'll keep going in it. So it says, but when you go away from paradise, or the Garden of Eden, paradise is the Greek version, if you guard yourself from everything evil as a person who will die, I will raise you up when the resurrection in turn occurs, and you will be given the tree of life and become immortal forever. Okay, so all they need to do is, hey, they fell short. Now they have to maintain themselves. And he says, you know what? I will resurrect you and you will have immortality, get your access to the tree of life as well. So, okay, so the Apocalypse of Moses now deals with the rise or the resurrection of Adam and what he will regain in the end time. Not righteousness and esteem, but, though, by immortality, but only if he behaves correctly. If you guard yourself from everything evil. So Chawah and Adam with her was formerly clothed in righteousness. Remember, we talked about this earlier, what this meant. When the esteem and conditions they after the fall had been stripped of, the eschatological saying here promised future restoration for a person who will die, as this person will become immortal by means of resurrection. Two types of resurrections must take place. One is your heart. That's your first resurrection. So if your heart can be resurrected, if you can get that circumcised, then it creates another resurrection, which is the body. Great. So if you guard my commandments, those who brought you down into this place would not have rejoiced. But I tell you, their joy will turn to grief, and your grief will turn to joy when I will turn you back to your rule and cause you to sit on your deceiver's throne. But that one will be cast into the place in order that you may sit above him. Okay, so remember that promise that was said in Bereshit Genesis is going to happen in the end. Okay, we're doing good so far. All right. Now let's talk about Romans 5:12. It says, wherefore, as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. So they're talking about one man back in the garden, right? So now what winds up happening, it says, for until the law of sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed when there is no law. Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam to Moshe Moses, even over them that had not sinned after the similitude of Adam's transgression, who is the figure of him that was to come. So who's to come? So another Adam. Okay, I got it. It says, but not as the offense, so also is the free gift. For if through the offense of one many be dead, much more the favor of Yahuah and the gift be favor, which is by one man, Mashiach Yahushua, has abounded unto many. So you remember, Adam was supposed to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth with this righteousness and esteem. That was his job. He failed at it. So now, through Mashiach, he's going to do that. Right? So you see the reversing of what's happening from the garden. Okay, and not as it was by one that sinned, so is the gift of the judgment was by one to condemnation. But the free gift is of many offenses unto justification. For if by one man offense death reigned by one, much more they which receive abundance of favor and of the gift of righteousness shall reign in life by one, Mashiach Yahushua. Therefore, as by the offense of one judgment came upon all men to condemnation, even so by the righteousness of one of the free gift came upon all men unto justification of life. For as by one man's disobedience many were made sinners, so by the obedience of one shall many be made righteous. All right. So you see disobedience, you see righteousness. And then he tells you what is righteous. Everyone remembers what righteousness is? Everybody else, all right? Oh.
Isaiah 51, verse 7. Righteousness within your heart.
All right. All right. So his righteousness in law, who knows his, heart who knows his law, right? Also in Devarim 6:25, his commandments is righteous. So we know what righteousness is. So the opposite must be true. If you don't do it, then you become someone that's disobedient, right? All right. Okay.
All right. Someone's saying, but was sin not imputed when there was no law? They're saying, what about Cain when he sinned and murdered Abel?
Okay. What about it? Oh, okay. I'm not sure what the question is, but think about it. What Cain did, he murdered his brother, right? So earlier in the Genesis series, we talked about, was Cain's murdering, killing him or murdering him? So there's a difference between murdering and killing. So if there was no definition of what murder was, but killing, then it's a different story. Because you remember, he can't stand if someone sheds a righteous blood, right? And before that, what winds up happening is that person must die, right? But we kind of went over that kind of a little bit more extensive in the Genesis series, I believe, and in the Torah portion, actually, on the Genesis part. Okay? Mm-hmm. All right. So before we go back to Corinthians, Adam's sin caused him to lose the esteem and reflection of Eloah or Elohim. This esteem is regained in Mashiach, the new creation of mankind. In Romans 5:12-19, sees Mashiach as the last Adam, reversing what the first Adam did. All right, so now 2 Corinthians 4:1. Therefore, having this ministry by the mercy of Yahuah, we do not lose heart, But we have renounced disgraceful, underhanded ways. We refuse to practice cunning or to tamper with Yahuah's word. Now, why is that highlighted?
The scriptures tell us don't add and take away from his word.
Okay, no problem. Anyone else? None of this reminds you anything in the garden, cunning and tampering with his word? By chance? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
great. I just want you to... Uh-huh.
When the evil one said that thou shalt not surely die.
Right.
What he says is what he says.
Exactly. Absolutely. Right back in the garden. Okay, great. But by the open statement of the truth, we would commend ourselves to everyone's conscience in the sight of Allah. And even if our good news is veiled, it is veiled to those who are perishing. So if one understands the veil, the whole principle of what veiling means and unveiling, it's for them. But if they're still veiled, what's wrong? So someone said something, I wasn't sure. Huh?
I don't know. They're still covered in darkness or still in sin.
Okay, to a degree, yep. Blinded, right? All right, so we'll see a little bit. All right, so verse 4 says, in their case, the law of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the good news of Basar, of the esteem of Mashiach, who is the image of Yahuah. So remember Adam being the image and likeness, now Mashiach being the image and likeness, right? Shaitan comes to blind, Mashiach comes to bring light, right? So he's blinding what? No, say it again as soon as you get the mic. I think she said it correctly. Yeah. Nikki.
I just said the word.
Yeah, the word. Remember in Luke chapter 8, what he talks about? Least you believe what? The word and be saved. So he knows what he's trying to put you in darkness to, so that if you believe it, you will be saved. He knows that's the light. Right? Is everyone good so far? I'm so happy we go over these rules. All right. Yeah, it's all good. All right, verse 5. This is for, we proclaim it not ourselves, but Mashiach Yahushua as Adon, or master, with ourselves as your servants for Yahushua's sake. For Allah who said, let light shine out of darkness, has shone in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the esteem of Allah in the face of Mashiach Yahushua. What do you get out of verse 6? Okay. So remember we talked about there was a knowledge from the tree of evil in the garden versus having the knowledge of Yahuah. The tree of knowledge of good and evil is not going to tell you about Yahuah. Okay. You need the Father's Spirit to tell you about Yahuah. Okay. Is everyone with me so far? So we did go over this before, right? Within the last couple of weeks. Okay. All right. Just make sure. Maybe when I come back, we can start all over again. And you guys can just follow along. All right. Darkness versus light. So Shaul says in 4:1 that having this ministry, okay, of conveying the good news of the Basar message leads to a transformation to Mashiach's image, causes him not to lose heart. Instead, he commends himself to the consciousness of others as truthful proclaimers of. All right, so that must mean he knows the Father's word. Now, mind you, I always have to stress this because if Matthew through Revelation didn't exist, what was called the Father's word? What was called Scripture, right? All right, so, But this manifestation through shows preaching is veiled to those perishing, in whose case the law of this age has blinded the minds of the unbelieving, so that the light of the Basar of the esteem of Mashiach, who is the image of the Lord, might not shine on them. Okay, so verse 6 says, for the Lord who said, let light shine out of darkness, he shunned it in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the esteem of Yahuah in the face of Mashiach Yahushua. He's the pattern. Okay, so he's now saying this is how you do it. Now we follow what he does, meaning if we look at Matthew's, let's say through John, right? If we look at what he did, we have to say, I wonder if he taught about not keeping law, statutes, and commandments. I wonder if he violated law, statutes, and commandments. I'm not talking about man's law. I'm talking about the commandments of men, but the Father. Because if he did, he would be considered a sinner, right? So if we were to take up the stake and follow him, then we would see that the things that he did was righteous, and we should be doing the same thing. All right. We look at some other things that I think we'll talk about in the future. Bereshit or Genesis 1:3 says, and Elohim said, let there be light, and there was light. And people say, hey, that's the big orbs in the sky, right? Greater light, lesser light, stars, that's what it is. Then you look at John 1:3 and 4, it says, and all things were made by him. Without him was not anything made that was made. And in him was life, and the life was the light of Ha-Adam in the Hebrew. Okay, so meaning of Adam, right? The man. All right, so the point here is in the future, we'll talk about more about this light that was made before the orbs was there. Okay. All right. Keep on going with Corinthians. As for Allah, who commanded the lights to shine out of darkness and shine in our hearts to give the light of knowledge of the kabod of Allah in the face of Yahushua Mashiach. He says, but we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellence of the power may be of Allah and not of us. Get yourself out the way. Okay, we got to start thinking about, when the Father does something for us, or I'll give it this way for Morehs and for people that say that can sing or do whatever. Sometimes that praise does something to you. When knowledge does something, it puffs up. You ever heard that before? All right. So they start to, oh yeah, Now they become a certain way, but get yourself out the way. It's not about you, right? All right. So it says, verse 13, it says, since we have the same spirit of faith, according to what has been written, I believed, and so I spoke. We also believe, and so we also speak. Right? So if you don't believe it, don't go out here speaking stuff you don't even believe yourself. All right? Oh yeah, that's what he said. Yeah, you over here struggling yourself. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I'm not really sure, but I'm still working on it.
But I believe it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it.
That's what you say behind closed, but when you up front, oh yeah, absolutely. Right? So just keep that in mind. Verse 14 says, knowing that he who raised Adon Yahushua, or the Master Yahushua, will raise us also with Yahushua and bring us with you into his presence. So his presence, his esteem, we can't be in this present state and be in his presence. It's just not going to work. Everyone agrees to that much, right? All right. You'd be like Yeshayahu in chapter 6. He's like, oh man, I'm undone. The seraphim had to come get a coal off the altar, touch him, and clean him. Okay, keep that in mind. You might want that too.
Excuse me, Moreh, I don't know if you can hear me. But then I have a question then, because that is one of my struggles now that I'm studying more and more. It's showing me how undone I was, am, and still struggling, trying to be before him with a clean hands, clean heart as much as I can. And So what was it then before we came into the walk? Like, what was it? Because there was definitely something there that called me, because I can only speak for myself, and I'm sure those of you in the room, maybe, something drew you, something. So what is that then? Because um, we were undone. We weren't, and we still aren't, and we're still trying to increase in knowledge and faith and walk before Him the best way we can. So what is that was calling us and keeping us when we weren't where we are now?
Okay, so there's a difference between, let's say, Yah being Yah's specific presence versus the Father's Spirit guiding you. Those are two different things. Okay, so there's one that's going to lead you to Him, and I know we all give credit. A lot of time we say, "Yah talked to me. Yah said this." Like you had this encounter that He came off His throne personally. It was Yah. Right? Or could it be the Father's Spirit that's doing this? Or the messengers, that's what they're called, right? Messengers that knew you before the world was, if you will. But we'll have to talk about how that works later on. But the point is that He knew you. And so therefore He can send a messenger because your heart was made ready at a certain time. You had a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, someone's asking. Well, I think I could probably wait to the end of the thing.
Okay. All right. Verse 16 says, "So we do not lose heart, though our outer self is wasting away. Our inner self is being renewed." How? Day by day. So remember, this outer vessel is on its way out the door. But that new creation is supposed to be happening on the inside, right? So that's the part, is, as we read, our bodies waiting for a whole new different look, right? All right. 17 says, "For this light momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of esteem beyond all comparison." Could you imagine what that looks like? 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, "Therefore, if anyone is in Mashiach, he is that new creation starts where? On the inside, in the heart, right? Then it says, the old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. So the old has passed. What's the old? I don't know. Is everyone outside? Or?
Moreh, the old mind, the old heart is passed away.
Okay, good. That old Adam, that old mankind of yours is going away on the inside. Because remember, everything started where? Inside. So once that's renewed, as this outer shell is starting to die off, I know we still put lotions and shea butters and oils. And we're trying to preserve it. We take showers and we in the mirror. It's all foggy in there. You're just trying to say, look how good you look. It's on its way out the door all the time. Yeah, we think we yeah.
On my way.
We think we got a Benjamin Button thing going. No. The flesh. The flesh got a Benjamin Button. We about to be renewed. Oh, okay. All right. I guess not. All right.
Look up more.
Look up one day and say, what happened?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, even at the gym, you do some things and all of a sudden you feel it in your knees. You're like, man, my knees hurting. Why they hurting? Let's let you know something. I don't care how much you praying and praising. Your body is on its way out the door. You thought you can do something that you just can no longer do. You see yourself 20, 30, you try it now, it'd be a whole different story.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. But if you do it, Ken.
So when we got immersed, those of us that got immersed, when we came back out of the water, were we 100% clean? And then we start grabbing back on those things, looking back, taking them back on?
Okay, so when you came out the water, you became a new creature, right? Old things become passed away. But when you're new, you're like a new babe. So babies do act up a little bit. But when you get to the knowledge of something, then you change. So that's the objective of the immersion. So sure, you'll be purified, and it's going to be a constant purification day by day. Okay?
Thank you.
Now, I don't give you as it says in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25 and 26, if you sin willfully, expect judgment. So I'll be doing that thing willfully. Tell me, I'm under. Yes. Oh, yeah. Just keep that in mind. It might hurt a little bit. So we'll keep going. So it is in Mashiach that one now becomes transformed to Elohim's image and esteem, the same esteem that the first Adam had reflected but lost in Genesis or Bereshit 3. Okay, so we're slowly, gradually trying to get back to the garden. Okay. All right, so I got a little comparison here. The writing of Acts, the letter of Corinthians. So we'll go from left to right. So Acts 26:13 says, "At midday, O king, I saw on the way a light from Shamayim, from heaven, brighter than the sun, that shone around me and those who journeyed with me. And when we had all fallen to the ground, I heard a voice saying to me in the Hebrew tongue, 'Shaul, Shaul, why are you persecuting me? It is hard for you to kick against the goad,'" or the pricks. "And I said, 'Who are you, Adonai?' And I said, 'I am Jesus, whom you have." What? Huh? What happened?
And don't look at back that up.
I don't see that more.
No?
Recap, Moreh?
Anyone in the Hebrew tongue?
Recap?
Well, I mean, oh, okay. All right.
Okay, Yahuah, Moreh.
Okay, I'll just check it. I wasn't sure.
Hamashiach Yahushua. That's right.
Oh.
Hamashiach Yahushua. Yahusha.
Okay. So okay. I guess the Hebrew language was the giveaway. Oh, okay. All right. "I am Yahushua, whom you are persecuting." I thought that Anyway, 2 Corinthians 4:4. Look at the comparison now. 2 Corinthians 4:4 says, "In their case, the Yahuah of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the good news," or the Basar of the Kabod Esteem of Mashiach, who is the image of Yahuah. So you see one side dealing with, and I saw that light. That light that he saw was Mashiach. And then on the other side, Corinthians says, in this case, Yahuah, this world is what? Blinded them, right? And he's the one that creates this darkness. We'll see in a minute. All right. 26:17 says, "Delivering you from the people and from the Gentiles, unto whom now I send, to open their eyes and to turn them from darkness to light, and from the power of Shaitan unto Yahuah, that they may receive forgiveness of sins and an inheritance among them which are sanctified or purified by faith that is in me." Keep that in mind. Verse 6, we read already. It says, "For Yahuah, who commanded the light to shine out of darkness, hath shined in our hearts, to give the light of the knowledge of the esteem," or the kabod of Yahuah, in the face of Yahushua HaMashiach. So now, in the blue, so it says, "Yahuah of this world has blinded the minds," right? That's in 2 Corinthians 4, which you just read there. Parallels the darkness. So the blindness and the darkness goes together, right? The dominion of Shaitan in Acts 26, the esteem in 2 Corinthians 4:13 is a parallel to the light. So everyone sees the difference between darkness and light. On the other side, it says to give light, as you see in 2 Corinthians 4:6, is parallel to opening the eyes. Okay, in Acts 26, to which they might not see in 2 Corinthians 4:4. So when you open your eyes, you see light. When you're blinded, you have darkness. And it's putting Shaitan on the side of blind and dark, Mashiach on the side of opening your eyes to light. And his word is a Okay, so you know Mishnah Proverbs chapter 6, verse 23. So notice that this thing started way back in the garden, right? So he wanted to start this blindness and keeping it in the dark way back there. And so now Mashiach's coming to fix that. Someone had a question? Okay,
When you was talking this, what came to mind with me was when the Mashiach had opened the eyes of the blind people, the people themselves. And it just came to me when you was reading that, and it was like, well, that has something to do with him open the eyes of the people that were blind. Because now they were in darkness, complete darkness, and then the light came.
Exactly. And then you tell them to go tell about it. Uh-huh.
So keeping with that theme, someone's asking, is the blindness of the unbelievers an act of the Father's judgment?
Okay, now, well, this one here is dealing with what Shaitan is doing. So not so much, now the judgment can be as if someone hears it, but then they just ignore it. Then sure, blindness can come that way according to Thessalonians. But if one is like basically been raised a certain way and the scales haven't fallen off their eyes, they're blinded because of something that was told to them, not so much that Yah is judging them. Okay. All right.
Now Amana has a question.
From another seed, right?
Right. You said who? Huh? Oh, okay. All right. So we'll keep going. We're almost done. The letter to the Romans with Philippians here. So Romans 12:1 says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of Allah, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, chodesh, set apart, and acceptable to Allah, which is your spiritual worship. All right, so this thing that's dying, he wants you to present that as a living sacrifice. Even though you know it's on its way out the door, you still need to present it a certain way so that it can help others. Okay? So we have an expectation as it talks about. Anyway, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that by testing you may discern. Remember, that was lacking was the discernment. So now, discernment, what is the will of Allah, what is good and acceptable and perfect. For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his son, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. All right, so notice here the image of his son, right? So if we think about what's happening here, being conformed to that image, and he's conformed in the image of his father, then we're starting to see a change that should start to happen, what should have happened from the beginning. All right, so for what can be known about Allah in plain to them, because Allah has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, has been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so they are without excuse. For although they knew Allah, they did not honor him as Allah or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. So you got to think about the heart being darkened. Who does that, right? Also, you see, again, giving him honor. Are some doing that now? Okay, well, we're doing it. You know, our desires to do that. Some people are not doing that. They want to give honor to themselves, right? But as it says, he did not honor him as the Lord and give thanks to him. Giving thanks to him is very key. All right, don't be giving thanks to yourself. You know, I think you can thank the Father for what he's given you. By all means, that's a blessing, because his word is going to make you stand out anyway. That's just how that works. All right. Who will transform our lowly body to be like his esteemed body by the power that enables him even to subject all things to himself? So again, this body is on its way out the door. All right. book of Hebrews. Has in these last days spoken unto us by his Son, whom he has appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the world, who being the brightness of his esteem and the express image of his person, and upholding all things by the word of his power, when he had by himself purged our sins, sat down on the right hand of the majesty on high. Verse 5 says, for to which of the Malachim did Elohim ever say, you are my son, today I have begotten you? Or again, I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son. So of course we know in Psalms, it quotes this here. But I want us to pay close attention here about the last days. Okay, the last days spoken about his son. Keep that in mind. And then appointed heir over all things, by whom he made the world. So again, if the first Adam was supposed to be doing this, and he's called his son, and then it didn't happen, here comes another one that's called his son, and he's going to do the very thing that the first Adam was supposed to do. To Mizmor, Psalms 2:7-9 says, I will declare the decree. Yahuah has said unto me, you are my son, this day I have begotten you. Ask for me, and I will give you the heathens, or the nations, or the Gentiles, for your inheritance, and the uttermost part of the earth for your possession. You shall break them with a shebet, right, with a rod or a scepter, okay, with a scepter of iron. You shall dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. All right, so there's something about somebody that's we call the son, and he's going to have this scepter, and he's going to have a rule over the earth. Now, we're going to go into how they thought before Matthew through Revelations comes on the scene. That means we're going to go to Dead Sea Scrolls to kind of see what they think about Psalms chapter 2 as well. All right, so we'll see that in a little bit. So it says, this is 4Q 4:18. It says, you will be to him like a firstborn son, and he will feel for you as a man does for his only child, forgiving every transgression and casting away all their iniquities, giving them all the esteem of Adam as an inheritance along with long life. Okay? So just as it states in Hebrews 1:2-6, the Qumran text also, which connects Israel's sonship and firstborn status with Adam's inheritance of the entire world, and with the eschatological time when Elohim's splendor and beauty will be expressed. A related passage, which is 4Q75, asserts that after all sin has been removed from the earth, all the world will be like Eden. Okay, and all the earth will be at peace forever, and a beloved son will inherit it all. So they understood this way before Matthew's through Revelations comes on the scene. Okay, so we'll keep going. So how the whole world will be blessed. So remember, we were sharing that at some point, this whole earth is going to have esteem. No sin is going to dwell on this earth, right? You remember this? Great. So Bereshit, or Genesis 22:17 says that in blessing I will bless you, and in multiplying I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore, and your seed, your Zerah, shall possess the gates of his enemies. And in your seed shall all nations of the earth be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice, right? So all nations, plural, will be blessed. So where will all these nations be? All around the world. Okay, so everyone see how this works? So that tells us from the covenant itself that our job would be to go out to all the nations and share about the Father's word. Right? Does everyone see this, right? All right. Then 26 3-5 says, sojourn in this land, and I will be with you, and will bless you, for unto you and unto your seed, and I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swore unto Abraham your father, which we just read, and I will make your seed to multiply as the stars of Shamayim or heaven, and will give unto your seed all these countries, and in your seed shall all nations of the earth be blessed. Why? Because that Abraham obeyed my voice, kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. Okay? So everyone sees how this works. If you keep it, you start to share the Father's light, they start to become blessed. Then they share it with their, and then they become blessed. And then at some point, every year, at time of Feast of Tabernacles, all nation is coming to Sukkot, to Israel, once a year. Everyone see how all nations can be blessed after this point? Okay. Then Hebrews 2:10 says, for it was fitting that he, for whom and by whom all things exist, and bringing many sons to esteem, should make the founder of their salvation perfect through suffering. So again, many sons to esteem, because if he's the pattern of esteem in the image and the likeness of the Father, then we become that. All right. So Mashiach is portrayed as possessing this logical esteem of Adam and the exact representation of Yahuah, and he has achieved the ruling position that the first Adam lost. In this position, he is also able to bring many sons to esteem. Okay? This is how he's going to have rulership. Last day. All right, so Hebrews 1:2, we'll read that really fast, and then I wanted to share that with Numbers 24. Remember, I talked about the scepter. So anyway, he says, has in these last days or latter days spoken unto us by his Son, whom he has appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the world. Now, Numbers 24:14 says, or Bamidbar 24:14 says, and now, behold, I am going to my people. Come, and I will let you know what this people will do to your people in the latter or last days. 17 says, I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob or Jacob, and a scepter or a rod shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab and destroy all the children of Shet. Okay, now Dead Sea Scrolls, let's see what they have to say. Remember, I told you we're going to see more about Psalms 2:7. So he says, Musha, a temple of Yahuah are you to prepare with your hands. Yahuah will reign over forever and ever. So you have the scriptures for that. This passage describes the temple that no man with a permanent flesh defect shall enter. So you remember that, right? If you have any defects, you ain't coming in here, right? So, well, yeah, but you know, they gave some descriptions of these defects. Okay, all right. It says nor, it says Moab or the Ammonites, Ammoni, bastard, foreign or alien, forevermore. Surely his set apartness shall be revealed there. Eternal esteem or chabod shall ever be apparent there. Strangers shall not again defile it, as they formerly defiled the temple of the Israel through their sins. To that end, he has commanded that they build him a temple of Adam, build him a temple of man, if you will, and that in it they sacrifice to him proper sacrifices. Now, think about what's a temple of Adam? I wonder what Adam is.
Body.
Oh, okay. Adam, mankind, Adam, a temple, or we call the temple, or we. All right, great.
Something that's made with man, with the hands of man.
Huh?
It's made with hands of a mankind, man that's making this temple.
All right. So think about that. And All right. So think about that. It says, to the end, he has commanded that they build him a temple of Adam, and that in it they sacrifice to him proper sacrifices. As for what he said to David, I will give you rest from all your enemies. 2 Samuel 7:11. This passage means that he will give them rest from all. All right. It keeps going. It says, the children of Belial, who caused them to stumble, seeking to destroy them by means of their wickedness. They became party to the plan of Belial, which is the adversary, in order to cause the sons of light to stumble. They plotted wicked schemes against them so that they might fall prey to Belial through guilty error. Moreover, Yahuah declares to you that he will make you a house, and that I will raise up your offspring after you and establish the throne of his kingdom. Forever, I will be a father to him, and he will be my son. Okay. This passage refers to the shoot of David, who is to rise with the interpreter of the law. So they understood that this person that's coming is going to be a shoot, an offspring of David, an interpreter of the law, and who will rise in Zion in the last days, as it is written, and I shall raise up the booths of David that is fallen. Amos 9:11. This passage describes the fallen branch of David, whom he shall raise up to deliver Israel. Okay, so this is their understanding going forward, right? The interpretation of happy are those who do not follow the advice of the wicked, Psalms 1:1. The meaning is that they are those who turn aside from the path of the wicked. As it is written in the book of Yeshayahu, Isaiah the prophet, in reference to the last days, and it came to pass while his hand was strong upon me that he warned me not to walk in the ways of this people. Okay, Yeshayahu 8:11. These are they about whom it is written in the book of Ezekiel, the prophet, namely, they shall never again defile themselves with their idols. Right? You find it 37:23. They are the sons of Saduk, and the men of their council who pursue righteousness and follow them to join the Yachad, or the community. Why do the nations conspire and the people plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against Yahuah and his anointed. Psalms chapter 2, 1 and 2. The meaning is that the nations shall set themselves and conspire vainly against the chosen of Israel. When? In the last days. Okay. And last but not least, closing thoughts. The two types of remnants we're not going to talk about today. But Belial then shall be left behind a remnant of chosen ones, the predestined. They shall perform the whole of the law, as Elohim commanded through Moshe Moses. This is the time of which it is written in the book of Daniel the prophet, the wicked will act evermore wickedly and shall not understand. But the righteous will be purified, cleansed, and refined. Daniel 12:10. So the people who know Elohim shall be steadfast. These are the men of truth, who shall instruct many, following the persecution that is to descend upon them in that time. Okay? So both Numbers 24:14 and 20, Psalms 2:8-9 uses scepter or shebet as an image for the Mashiach, who will crush the nations, rule over them, and receive them as an inheritance. All right, so